Ramy, do you want to stay alone forever?
Mom, you can't just walk up to a Muslim girl and like start spitting game or something. Like, what am I supposed to say? Like, hey, can I get your father's number?
Yes, why not?
This Ramadan, I really want to do it the right way, man. It's been a weird year. And I feel like if I can just do this the right way, I can figure my shit out. I'm not gonna look at porn, nothing. I just want to commit.
No porn. This guy says no porn.
It's gonna be tough.
No way. Impossible.
I'm going out.
Does anyone even care where Ramy goes? You guys never ask him where he is.
He just told me he's going out.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
He literally gave you no information.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Love you, Mom.
Love you, Habibi.
I want to know who I am. I want to explore.
You're like the kids in Egypt. They throw down the government. Big revolution. Then what? No plan.
I don't know what I'm doing, man. I look at my parents and how strong they are and how they just know everything's gonna be okay because they have God. And yeah, I have sex even though I'm not married.
Where are you gonna go?
So what? That means I'm not a good Muslim? I'm just like trying to be good.
You jerk off too much.
What are your goals for this life?
For this life?
Yeah, before the day of judgment.
Yeah, you know, I'm not really like a big planner. You know, I'm kind of more like an in the moment kind of guy.
Islam will continue to be triumphant until there have been 12 Khulafa, all of them from Al-Quraysh.
The God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever.
This is my brother, my executor, and my successor among you, so listen to him and obey.
My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting.
Whoso obeys me obeys God. Whoever disobeys me disobeys God. Whoever disobeys my commander disobeys me.
The Lord said to me, You are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, and the ends of the earth your possession.
Two systems of government, two visions for life on earth. Whichever is true changes everything. This is Christ and Khulafa.
For people who haven't seen Ramy, how would you summarize what the show is about? Season 1.
I guess if I had to do it in 2 sentences, it would be an Egyptian American boy grows up in New Jersey, comes of age around 9/11, and is feeling his way through Western culture with Muslim roots.
Very good. And that's how much of that relates to your own backstory?
Oh my gosh. So there are times in watching this show, I was like, oh my gosh, that was 100% what I was going through. And then there are other times I'm looking at some of the things that happen, in the midst of the story in and out. And I'm like, I don't relate with that at all. And it'll be him, but I'll relate to everything going on around him, right? Because New Jersey, because, it's a Muslim backdrop in a Western place, which I'm from New Jersey, right? I lived in New Jersey for 38 years. So a lot of the places they're talking about very, yeah, I've been there, right? And then when they're filming, sometimes I'm like, I wonder, that looks a lot like Newark, so in that regard, it really hit home quite a bit. Some of it, I'm like, can I just say this? I can't get over how much sex people are having. That was just not on my radar as growing up Muslim, right? If it happened around me. It didn't happen obviously it happened to me, but it was just nuts. Right, this whole cult, this undercurrent of the Muslim culture, where everyone's just hooking up. Yeah, so that felt a little alien, but the growing up around Westerners, growing up around people who had a very, American culture, and then being, Turkish. Like, we had rugs on the walls. We ate on the floor. That kind of thing. And it's just trying to integrate while not integrating, right? While still trying to, like, keep some sense of what your culture was and what your roots are.
Okay, so for Christians who are considering watching Ramy, we just talked about how much the show deals with the subject of sex, which is obviously like a huge theme of the show. So, how how do you think that the Christian viewer is going to feel about, like, how do you think the show handles the subject? Is that something that is going to be like off-putting for people? Should it be off-putting? What do you think?
What do you think? Because let's say
what was the question? If it's off-putting?
Yeah, it's like, what should a Christian think? Looking at the sort of show's view of sex and how it handles it.
I think it was super explicit, to be honest, compared to Game of Thrones, compared to other kind of. I didn't think it was graphic. So that part shouldn't be that off-putting. And then, I mean, yeah, the stories are very real issues that I think it's worth. I mean, yeah, everyone has their own personal boundaries of what they want to engage with visually, but I think it's pretty worthwhile to grapple with the sex in this show as a Christian, I think.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty
and
yeah.
The thing I would say about this is that what it's doing is it's not an explicit show. There's no actual nudity in the show.
No.
But what it's doing, and I think some Christians have like a simplistic radar for media, that they see bad activities being portrayed, like, and they think, okay, well, the messaging of the show itself is bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually would make the argument that in a lot of ways, Ramy is a bit of an argument against this sort of hookup culture.
Oh yeah, like the main character, it's like destroying him.
Yeah.
And he like is looking for, and I guess we can talk about it subject by subject, but he like wants a genuine connection, and he seeks it. Well, or like either I don't know if he seeks it. I guess things come across to him, situations, people, and maybe he thinks that he's gonna find it, but like it, like as a viewer, we're like, no.
He's basically seeking immediate gratification and pleasure on the one hand, yet there's also this deeper meaning he's questing for as well, and they basically just keep hitting up against each other and causing all sorts of issues for him.
Right. Backing up to the question you asked, I think if you want a very sanitary experience, you're not going to get it here. I think it's real and it's wrong, right? And I don't know if it's based on his experiences or just a bunch of writers sitting in the back room. I mean, you watch the after shows. Came up with this idea of what the show's content would be like and what the plot lines would be like. It's not going to show up on VidAngel, right? Like, it's not going to show up on God TV. It's not that kind of show. It's not The Chosen.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of value in it.
Hey, I mean, if people are reading their Bibles, there's nothing in this show that the Bible doesn't talk about. So, and that's not written. So,
right. And I think that
there's no point in avoiding it.
I know some people are triggered by like sexual content. If that's the case, fast forward, right? Like when that stuff starts to happen. And it's not like, again, it's not like watching Game of Thrones or something where you're like, oh, they just had a battle. Oh, okay. That's the next scene, right? And it it doesn't come out of nowhere. If it does, it's only like one or two instances or something. But I think the most valuable aspect of the show is kind of drawing from his disconnect with his roots and trying to put things that are around him, right, like into that hole in his heart, right? So sex, partying, right? Like he has friendships, he has close relationships with guys, but he's like got this promiscuity problem. He's disconnected from his family in some ways, but he's tight with his family in other ways, right? They're not like they're not having like a real accountability relationship. That does happen later with a conversation with his dad, but it's superficial, right? It's very superficial Islam. You can remember the fasting episode. There's an episode where they were fasting, and he's like all psyched to fast for Ramadan, and then everyone eats, and then he's like, "We should read the Quran, we should go," and they're like, "Shut up! We're watching this."
If we missed the first episode, we won't know what's going on.
Well, the dad, I love it. Like the dad is like in not, I don't know, romanticized and loved or like hypnotized by like Western pop culture and movies, like Hollywood movies, and like that's his whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So who's everyone's favorite character in this show?
Oh.
That's a good question.
Oh man.
I mean, are you allowed to pick Ramy?
I mean, yeah, of course you're allowed to pick Ramy.
Ramy frustrates me so much. Like, oh. Mo's character is my favorite.
I love Mo.
Wait, who's Mo again?
He's the guy that owns the diner.
Diner. The guy who owns the diner.
The guy. Oh yeah, he's great.
So
the electronics guy.
Yeah.
He's like the thing with him. It's like he like the difference between his character and Ramy's character is he's like as much of a hypocrite as Ramy easily.
Oh,
but he's completely at peace with it.
Right.
He's completely at peace with it.
Yeah. He's good with his hypocrisy. It's right.
Yeah. So I actually, if any of the creators of Ramy are watching this, I actually really want to get like an inside look on Mo, because he remains mysterious through this season, and I'd actually argue for the whole thing that he's really funny and he's completely at peace with his hypocrisy and he's just having a great time, but we never get to see his like inner workings of how that happens.
Right. Yeah, I think he kind of deserves his own spin-off. Like, I would love to see more of that story.
He does actually.
Oh, he does.
But it's not I don't think it's actually a Ramy spin-off, but Mo Amer actually has a Netflix show that just came out called Mo.
Oh, that's him?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. My sister-in-law sent me that. She's like, you should watch
What's
this.
that about?
It's kind of like Palestinian American immigrant journey kind of thing, but this is like largely happens in Texas or something.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure he's not. I don't think there's a Ramy cinematic universe or anything.
Got it.
The Ramyverse.
Yeah. So that's pretty high on my next list of things I'm going to watch, because Ramy Youssef, the writer of Ramy, is also a writer on Mo as well.
Oh,
so I'm pretty psyched to see it.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
I heard about it.
You gotta watch it.
Yeah. All right.
Well, we'll review it as well.
Yeah. Still have to hit Miss Marvel too, by the way.
I liked the other friend. The doctor nurse friend. I like him. He's so funny. And I like the mom.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite characters.
She's a great character.
Or I like her character, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually really like the dad.
You do?
Yeah, he's like subtly funny, but he gets a couple of like great episodes in like later seasons.
Oh, okay. Well, we're not talking about those seasons.
Yeah. You'll see more of him. There's lots to look forward to him. But it's like again, it's one of these things where the acting is really good because he's not really old enough to be Ramy's dad. Like the actor himself is not like actually bald. He's like shaved that haircut if possible. It's just so well done. Like all of the acting in this show is so good.
Oh
right.
yeah.
Oh, agreed. I think if I had a favorite, it's actually young Ramy.
Oh,
like the little kid, young Ramy, like, coming of age right at 9/11. That was my favorite episode. And it's episode 3. I can't remember. Where he's getting a lot of pressure from his friends to masturbate, and he's like faking this whole like experience and telling them all these like tall tales about the times he masturbated, even though he didn't. And then he goes to bed at the end of the and then 9/11 happens, right? And his friends are like, prove to us you're not a terrorist. Go in the woods and masturbate. Right? So kid goes kid goes into the woods, completely freaks out, runs out of the woods, and his friends are gone. They abandon him. And
which is how he ended up being best friends with the guy in the wheelchair.
Steve. The guy in the wheelchair.
Which is
that's also a great story. I mean, I can talk about that episode too. But he goes to bed at the end of the episode and has a dream where he talks to Bin Laden. Like Bin Laden shows up in his kitchen, like he's like, don't they have any strawberries? And he opens up the refrigerator. He opens up the refrigerator and goes, ooh, Ready Whip. These are good Muslims. It's so great. And, in this really weird, conversation that they're having that's both serious and absurd at the same time, which is really what I appreciate about this show, right? Yeah. There's absurdity and there's an element of like, oh my gosh, that's so deep.
No, yeah, right? It was heartbreaking. That episode was heartbreaking.
Right. And then at the end, of that conversation, during that conversation, Bin Laden is explaining why Ramy can't go back to Egypt and why Egyptians grow strawberries and not wheat, right? And placing all that blame on the West and everything. And then he's looking at Ramy. You're just like me. And he's like, and justifying the jihad, right? And justifying the violence. And Ramy kind of pushes back on that and says, I'm nothing like you, right? And then he runs back upstairs into his room, gets under the covers, and then this woman that he's been fantasizing about on the cover of Good Housekeeping, right, shows up outside his room, and he's like, you're nothing like him. And American Girls are great. And then she shows her cleavage, right? And then he wakes up, But it was just this crazy episode, where he's having this dialogue with the terrorist, and he winds up in his room with the girl on the cover of Good Housekeeping, right? Like a mom.
Well, because he's searching for his identity, right?
Right.
And at this point, everyone's telling him, your identity has to be about your sexuality.
Oh, sure.
And so, that is a common, in Western culture, that is actually, a pretty accurate juxtaposition of, what a person's identity is when you grow up in the United States and you're from a Muslim, maybe a Muslim background. It's your sexual identity, which that's the whole show, right? It's your sexual identity versus your cultural identity, or I guess your
religio-cultural
religio-country identity. Yeah. So he's like, no, I'm not like you. I'm American, or I'm a liberated,
right,
sexually liberated person.
My experience was tiered: national identity, identities, religious identity, then, everything else, right? Mm-hmm. You were a Turkish first, you were then Muslim, right? And they kind of leapfrog, but depending on whether or not it was Ramadan,
Uh-huh.
and then my parents had no scope of what it was like to grow up in Western culture, and they offered me exactly nothing.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know it, and they were busy working and trying to provide for us and all that other stuff. I mean, a first generation immigrant thing is really difficult. Now, I don't know if Ramy was born in Egypt or not. I get the sense that he was born in America, right?
In the show, he was born in America.
He was born in America.
In real life, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So the first generation immigrant thing, it really does play a lot into what he's going through, because your parents can offer you nothing. They don't know. They
Yeah.
don't know what they don't know, and they're focused on like, all right, we have these roots and we're trying to preserve these roots and we're trying to preserve our traditions. But when you leave that that matrix of, socio-religious activity that is in your home country, and you come here and you're like, well, what are we going to do? What traditions are we going to keep? How are we going to raise our kids? Well, they're Muslims, but
I love when the dad puts out the American flag
right.
on his
That actually,
and they still snob at him, the neighbors.
yeah. I mean, I remember when that happened. I was 20, I forget how old I was, about 24, 20, 25, 25.
11.
Maybe 26, yeah. And every Muslim I knew freaked out. And some Muslims I knew were like, that was great. We need more of that. And then other Muslims I knew were like, yeah, my father, right? It was awful, but there was, even in the awful, some like, well, he kind of has a point, right? Season 3 kind of puts that out there, right? Like, he's episode 3 kind of puts that out there, Well, he kind of has a point because of all these other things, but, a lot of people draw the line at violence, right? At, terrorism and stuff. So, yeah, your parents don't really have anything to offer you, right? Like, you're still, okay, figure it out, and who do you figure it out from? You figure it out from the kid down the street, right? And his older brother, like...
I think one of the most valuable things that someone who wants to know about Muslim American culture can get from this is just how complicated it is.
Right.
Like, so many in the West just kind of have this idea that it's like this massive monolith of different people, and Ramy is not centered around like super hardcore Muslims by any means. Occasionally they kind of pop up in the show. Like the guy in the first episode who makes him scrub between his toes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Right. That's funny. With the socks on. What's he doing? Washing his feet with his socks on. He's washing his socks to make him look like he washed his feet.
Yeah, I don't
yeah, that's a new one for me.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think, to me, how the show actually handles religion is one of the most fascinating things about it.
Right.
So how would we put together the sort of religious worldview of the show from season 1? And I've seen 3 seasons. There's some really profound points. I'm really still not sure where it's going completely. I think with 4 seasons of Ramy, we may land on what Ramy Youssef's answer is to all these questions. I'm not sure, or it may just be kind of an Ecclesiastes type, everything is meaningless type story. But we don't know that yet. So let's...
I think I watched the after show a little bit. Maybe, and I'll have to see the other seasons. But I think that the intent of the creators of the show and writers and producers was really just that. It's just to have an exposition, a truthful exposition, which obviously they did that because were amazed at the show. I think it's just, maybe it's really just trying to, it's really just a show for people to find this is exactly what I'm going through. It doesn't have to have any answers.
So let's take some of the ideas, idea by idea here. So what's the sort of outlook of what's the story the show tells of Western secularism?
Well, let me think about that.
I mean, through a Muslim lens.
Just from the writer of the show's lens, right? What's the sort of general assessment of it?
I mean, the culture that Ramy interacts with is doesn't understand Islam and is, at his age, are wrapped up in partying, you're still out there. I don't know how old he is in the show, but you're wrapped up in partying and trying to find. Well, eventually, I can't party forever, so I have to find somebody. And the points he makes through the show is I'm trying to figure out what kind of Muslim I am before I connect with someone else. I think that's the theme, right? Like it's trying to explain everything through this lens of I want to be a part of the West, but I can't be a part of the West truly, but I can be a part of the West if I do the things that the Westerners do, right? So it's the way that he tries to connect with American society is through like I'm a young dude and I'm just gonna go out and sow my wild oats.
But
right?
what is American society is also probably a question that the show tries to answer as well. Like, what is it? And based on the episodes and the people, like say the dad, say even the Egyptian family, and how they are all like they're like I don't know, they're just like it seems like everyone's infatuated with like America's wealth, its pop culture, and its like style. So it's has to do with like the I guess like I don't know, like the visual and aesthetic of Western culture, and the wealth and like the material that it has to offer.
Yeah. So I'd say the show does have a view of the West that it has something to offer.
Uh-huh.
And not every, and so Stevie is an American character who's portrayed as someone with some sort of substance. It's definitely not an East versus West show.
Right.
It's definitely not America bad, Eastern culture good kind of show.
No.
It's really trying to take an honest look at everything. And actually probably one of my favorite moments of the whole show is when he goes back to Egypt to try and just kind of get away from everything, and what he just encounters is more of the same that happens to me in a different country.
Right.
Okay, so what about sort of traditionalist Sunni Islam in the show? What's the show's take on that?
Based off of season 1.
Based off of season 1.
Yeah.
I would go with. There's a lot of people either striving to become better Muslims and not really knowing what that is, right? Because I don't think he's alone in that. Or a lot of people who are like, I'm okay with the Islam I have, I'll be a part of the community. I might go to the mosque, when it's important, but, I'm going to go out and try and score some chicks, right? Like, or we're going to go out and we're going to party or this. I mean, Mo is just that character, right? Like, he's totally fine with it. It's all good. No one's going to tell me that I'm not a Muslim or I'm not doing it right, because this is how it's done, right?
Yeah.
It's like, he's very assured in that.
What did you ask? How it views?
Yeah, how the show kind of portrays like conservative Sunni Islam?
Conservative, how it portrays it?
Yeah.
Portrays it, yeah, like.
Well, I think there's a lot of tradition. There's a ton of tradition that people are trying to keep up with, and there's a ton of cultural pressure, and that is in the driver's seat of Islam for these people, right? So it's not about what the Quran says or what the Hadith say.
It barely
or being,
there
right.
was one scene where he's trying to read the Quran.
That was hilarious.
Allah.
That's right. That's the only thing. That's the only thing you can read in the whole book.
If I had to summarize the portrayal of Sunni Islam in the show, it's all about the community, right? It's all about the community. It's all about like family, like it tries to be. Yeah, family and community, and trying to be as honorable, as good or pure as possible. I guess the whole, like, whether you're looking at the parents, the children, the uncles, which that uncle, like,
Uncle's
oh
the
my
best.
god.
Oh, I love
You
it.
know what? Can I take my answer back? He's my favorite character.
Oh, he is.
Oh.
The moment.
He drives you nuts, but he's like.
So a couple of things. Like, one, I love his when Ramadan started, and he's like, "Uncle, it's Ramadan. Why aren't you fasting?" It's like, "Ramadan starts tomorrow. You guys are all following the Saudis. They're traitors." I said, they're the most corrupt country in the world.
Oh my
It's like,
God.
what about Israel? It's like, they're Jews. They don't know any better.
Oh my god. God.
So anti-Semitic.
I don't know.
When
Yeah.
he's like making fun of the Jews, none of them can drive, and he's as Ramy
Yes,
says,
the Jews and
Yeah,
the Asians.
that's not even the correct stereotype of it. That's not the race that we think that can't drive. He goes, no, it's the Jews and the Asians.
No, like obviously all these characters, right, that are supposed to trying to be good Muslims, like the mom. Like I love the mom, and like, but she's like like they're just not good people. Like they're just not good people, and like I think Ramy is trying to like reconcile like how does my culture or religion tell me to be a good person, and how does it like maybe like uphold or defend the oppressed in America, like you know, the disabled, women, people of color, like because he's like, I don't believe in these stereotypes, uncle, but you have the wrong. You're not explaining the stereotype correctly.
So I would basically make the argument that most characters in the show don't represent like conservative believing Islam anyway. They represent this sort of like cultural Islam, which kind of like very much picks and chooses in like different ways, right? So Uncle Nassim picks and chooses it one way. His parents pick and choose it like
Another
a different way, right? Because again, like watching TV while Ramadan, they're Muslim, they pray, but they're more interested in like TV than the Quran. There's two candidates in this show for representations of like serious Sunni Islam. So one is the toes guy from the first episode, because he has this bruise on his head, which is in Egyptian sort of like conservative Islam, is a bruise from like hitting your head praying. So people like hit the ground hard on the ground on purpose. And what you see from him is he's kind of portrayed as this disconnected force that's like believes in all these rules.
Is he the same guy that owns that like or that has like a restaurant?
He does have a restaurant. I don't think we see that.
Yeah, it's not the same.
It's not the same as Moe's.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So he's kind of like seen as the guy that's really cares about the details of the rules.
Yeah.
And
cares about cleansing himself.
Yeah,
specifically.
Like genuinely cares about like striving after pleasing God, but he's doing it in a way that's just like disconnected. So like at the end of that first episode, Ramy goes to him and just kind of like unloads his life's problems.
Yeah.
And the only thing he has to say is,
stop jerking off.
Yeah, exactly.
You jerk off too much.
So there's no.
But like, sure, it sounds disconnected, but like, simple advice, like, dude, you just do it too much. It's not good for you. Just like, it seems like the guy has some concept of like basic right and wrong, and like basic could be good for a person.
Yeah, that's true, but it's disconnected from like real personal care.
Right,
of Ramy.
Not really a ton of empathy going on.
Oh
there,
yeah, no.
right?
I mean, he cleans his feet, which actually reminded me of like that imagery of when Jesus, like, I mean, not that he would do it that way.
I hadn't
but
thought
like,
of that.
But like the notion of somebody cleaning somebody else's feet, and like maybe someone that you're not in agreement with, because obviously he's like not happy with Ramy.
I mean, the motives are completely.
Right. But the imagery is very interesting.
Yeah.
Because it points somewhere. But you're right. Like that guy is probably one of the more legit guys.
But in this, so then the other candidate, but it's hard to say because we don't really get to hear him speak, is Ramy's grandfather.
Yeah.
Right.
So he's about to represent.
I'm really. I mean, spoiler alert. He dies. But
right.
I'm really sorry he died. right? Like I was really looking forward to conversations they were gonna have.
I can't believe they did that. Yeah. I mean, that was such a. I was very surprised.
So it's like they frame him as someone who's going to say something profound.
Yes.
And Ramy never gets to hear it.
Yes.
And I do actually think the more we interact with like Muslim cultures, there is this sense that somewhere in the past somebody has all the answers to this stuff, but no one now can quite grasp it. So it's always like just out of reach.
And quite literally, because they're dead.
Yeah.
Like.
So this guy is an archetype.
Like
for...
death is the big, like one of the big barriers between like the current generation and like getting answers from people from the past.
Yeah. There's no one gonna carry the torch, right?
And so there's all this speculation. Yeah, that's a good point. Like now he's just left like with this big amount of speculation about his
So I'd be like actually really curious if I could talk to Ramy. This is probably the question I would ask him if I had one question. It'd be like, okay, the grandpa died before he could say what he was going to say. In your mind, what was the grandpa going to say? Do you have an answer to that question?
He would say, "Stop jerking off."
And so it's possible, right?
To what question?
To what are the answers to the like Ramy's question is like it's everything, right? What is the meaning of my life? Why am I here?
he's like I'm confused.
I'm confused.
He's saying he's confused.
I need to know who I'm
identity.
supposed to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's trying to figure out, and it's just and so the grandfather is this archetype of almost got it.
He greeted him with like the empathy and the like care and love.
Yeah, and I can't wait to be your mentor. I can't wait to like
give you
fix
wisdom.
the disconnect.
He said he was
right.
wise at this point and that he had wisdom to offer.
Yeah,
right. I can't wait. I can't wait to help you. Grow into me.
Yeah. So the grandpa represents truth wrapped in love, but it's just outside of his. It's that's what
death intercedes.
Yeah. Exactly. So what Ramy's quest is throughout the season is a quest for is love truth that's wrapped in love.
Right.
For him.
Right.
Yeah, like understanding.
And I think it's pretty clear that there's a point where he realizes he doesn't like himself. So you can see all of the different ways he's trying to figure out how to get this kind of sense of personal loathing off of his back, right? So he goes to visit Steve, and Steve even calls him out on it. What'd you do wrong? What'd you do wrong? You usually only come when you need to feel better about yourself. And the way he spins it is, no, we're just bros. I want to come see you, man. I want to come hang out with you. But, the entire thing backfires. I mean, that's another crazy episode. This is actually another part that I could totally identify with. Teenagers getting wasted, like with no parental supervision, just sneaking off and drinking or smoking, whatever. Yeah. So, he doesn't like himself. And it's clear that he doesn't like himself. And and this is actually something I really identified with.
Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
When I was 22-ish, and I realized I didn't like myself, right? And I was doing some of the same things that Ramy was doing and having some of the same conflicts internally, because I didn't want to be my dad, and I didn't want to be my parents, and I wanted to be myself, but I couldn't get away from what they gave me, right? Like what their legacy was and what they had passed on to me. As far as national identity, what your spiritual identity should be. And, when I had like outright rejected that at a certain age and just tried to be like full cocked, I'm going to be an American, I was never able to just completely like assimilate because of things like your name or, your family life and all this other stuff and not having people around who have a similar experience. So I hit this point where I didn't like myself. And I went back to my dad, and I was like, I have done all of these things. And he probably knew. I have done all of these things, and all of these things have led me to this moment. And I am looking for answers. And my dad pointed me back towards Islam. And that was the direction I was headed in. I was going to go find some imam.
Because, and can I just interrupt? Because you're looking for some place, or maybe not a person, but like to unload all that bad stuff. Ramy, you, me, us, the people. Like, you're looking for something that will cleanse you, that will put you on the right path again.
Make you feel like you have a sense of, this
morality.
is a direction I'm going to head in, and if I can look at what these people are doing and emulate it, then maybe looking at their life from the outside, looks a lot better from how you're feeling, because you're like, I'm in legal trouble.
It makes sense.
I've been hanging out with these people, and they, I can't identify with them anymore because I don't want to do these things anymore, and all my friends still want to do these things, and the only way that I could be a part of that was to hang out and participate in their lifestyles. But you hit a point where you're like, you become self-actualized, right? Like you realize what's going on and who you're not, right?
Yeah.
And you start looking at that and go, well, I don't want to be that anymore. Ramy does that in the show, right? Like, he has this moment where he's like, I don't want to be that anymore. So what am I? And that's kind of I'm trying to figure things out, right? I'm trying to figure things out. So people in the show, people his age, they're married, right? They have a kid, they have a stable job, work, right? And Ramy doesn't fit in any of those boxes, right? So because deep down inside, he doesn't like himself, and he doesn't know who he really is. And for me, I started to do what he was doing. I just didn't have a grandfather. I was looking for, I went to my dad, and my dad pointed me to an imam. I had spiritual questions. I didn't really, my question at that moment was, who is God? Like, who is God? Can you just tell me who God is? And if you can tell me who God is and who God really is, then I understand that my problems internally will start to resolve themselves, because I won't be in conflict with my culture, right? I won't be in conflict with the religion I was raised in. I think I inherently knew that there was like a conflict between the values of the West and the values of my family, right? And my father would always say, don't be like them, right? Like, keep yourself apart from them. You're not like them. And I'd be like, I'm totally like them, because I'm going and doing the same things they are. And he would say the same things. They'll never, like his grandfather said to his son, they won't accept you. He was a little bit more conspiratorial about it than like, oh, they'll brainwash you, right?
Yeah.
They'll brainwash you, the West will brainwash you.
It does that. It's guilty of brainwash in a lot of ways.
Maybe not brainwashing. I just think it offers something that a lot of cultures, you have to assimilate to be here. You just have to, to have like a level of, you don't have to fully assimilate, and there are different levels of it. But if you want to hit that ultimate level of like, I want to be like the next, I don't know, pick a superstar, right? There's a level of, I got to take my own values and throw them out, so that I can be closer to the top of the, the
if you were to
success
look at it that
pyramid.
way, yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it just, well, that's the way I used to look at it, right? I used to look at it that way, and I used to look at it and say, in order for me to be fully accepted by this group of people, I have to be less like myself.
Like your dad.
Right.
Or like, yeah.
Yeah, I can't be my dad, right? I couldn't be my dad anyway. But,
yeah,
I can't be like, hey, we're all sitting around the Christmas tree. I used to do at Christmas? I used to just sit there and wish that I could be at other people's houses because it was so lame and could be around my friends. And if you bring that story up, you're like, everybody's like, oh yeah, cool story. They still do it, right? Like, you still do it. You say, okay, I was in Messianic Judaism for 25 years, connected to it. And I would say, hey, I used to sit on the floor when I ate, and we used to have carpets hanging on the wall in our house. And, this was all our traditions, right? And all the time we spent at Turkey going back and forth and all these other things. And this is my dad's experience and everything. And there definitely wasn't, in some of the rooms that I used to be in, both before I got saved and after, like a ability for people to cognitively wrap their minds around what was happening and what I was saying. So they would compartmentalize it, right? They'd be like, oh, that's a cool story, bro, and then move on.
Yeah.
So I think what you're looking for is for somebody to engage you at the point of where you are.
So what did the imam tell you?
I never met him because I got it's the book I'm going to write one day. It's called "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Mosque." Right?
Okay.
I wound up getting saved,
Right.
and I became.
That's the other thing. They don't have any Christians in this this season. They mentioned it one time. They're like, I don't remember what it was. It was like they were talking. It was like, no. Oh, like maybe Trump or something. They were talking about. They're like, no.
Oh,
They're Christians or
Trump's
something
a
like
great-
that. Like
that's
I don't know if it
a
was that or if it was like
that was
some other
such a great
or if it was some
conversation.
other like
Yeah.
or Obama. Oh no, it was Obama.
Obama's a Muslim.
Oh yeah,
Trump is a Christian,
yeah.
right?
No, it was like Obama. No, he was saying that Obama was Christian.
And they're like, no. He's like that's why he bombs the Muslim countries to make it look like he's not Muslim.
Right. His name is
Says,
Barack Obama.
Barack.
Yeah.
His name is Barack Hussein
Obama.
Obama. Is he Chinese?
So great.
That was freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
That was so funny.
That's actually really funny because there's only one person I met the last time I was in Turkey who was like, Trump's an animal. Everybody loved Trump.
Right,
Everybody.
right.
Right? Even my mom, who hates Republicans, she loved Trump. Right?
Very interesting.
There's a lot of ways that Trump represents kind of like the ideal of Middle Eastern manhood.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
It comes off like Trump was running the country like a caliphate, and nobody would let him. Right? Just let him have the caliphate, the American caliphate.
The American caliphate. Oh my god.
So here's what I think.
Tangent.
Here's what I think is most interesting from a kind of Christian worldview perspective. So in traditional Sunni Islam, you have this idea of the fitra, that everyone's born pure, and then it's like these external influences that corrupt you over time, right? Whereas Jesus says nothing outside of a person can make you unclean. In Mark 7, he says evil comes out from within a person's heart, and that's what makes a person unclean.
And that we're born with sin.
Yeah, born with sin. Like
not that a baby's like evil.
Yeah, but it's that we all have that draw within us already.
But that eventually, as this baby becomes adult,
yes,
you already have it within.
Yeah,
you.
the seed's there, right? Nobody has to put it in there, right?
Yeah.
So if you keep a baby away from sinners, it will still become a sinner because it is a sinner. Yeah. As part of its nature.
Yeah.
So watching the story Ramy tells, which story of human nature is this show telling?
About whether you're corrupted or whether you are already born corrupt.
Yeah.
Let me think about that.
I would argue that Ramy has never felt like he's been pure. And I would also argue that's a product of his environment. So,
which is the narrative of which is a narrative of you are corrupted, not you are born corrupt.
Right. Like it seems to come from this standpoint that he wound up that way. Right. But I think looking at it from a Christian lens, you're like, bro, it's obvious.
It's obvious that.
Yeah, it's obvious that you're a sinner, right?
But that because you were born with it, or because somebody else put it on to you?
No, I mean, I think a Christian's going to go, he was born that way, and this is the fruit of how he wound up, right? This is what happens when you grow up in a Muslim system, in a Muslim culture, and you wind up in this place very far from God.
My take on this, I don't think the right is being like, was Ramy born this way, or did he become this way over time? But think about the sort of like general argument of the first season. I don't want to call it an argument because it's a story.
It's a story.
Let's talk about where the story goes, right? He feels like he is corrupted because of all these things around him. That's what his grandfather is saying to his father.
Yeah.
Right? These external influences will corrupt you. And then But then when he goes to Egypt, everything's all the same, and basically
Well, maybe they've been corrupted by the external
Yeah.
influences of
Yeah.
the West, and what was it like? Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah. But what you are seeing from Ramy's perspective is it doesn't matter what he has in his life externally, it doesn't actually solve the problem within him.
Right.
No, yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Right.
So it's like the closest he ever comes is in the last episode in that Sufi room. And I would say the Sufi Muslims in this show are the closest thing that's portrayed to like the truth.
Right.
But from a narrative perspective, all that does is provide a brief moment of escapism, right? That's what the cousin is saying to him, is that, well, sometimes I
She has to go to this place.
Yeah.
To feel enlightened or at peace or surrounded by love, maybe. There's an argument for like love cures all.
Yeah.
There. But it's not something that any of these characters have been able to take with them.
Yes.
Out into the world.
And the reason why is because what she's saying is that I overthink things, and the cure to that is to go to this place and to switch off. And that's the exact type of mindset that gets them into trouble in the last scene, right? That's the end.
Sure.
That's the mindset
Sure.
that ends with the cousins making out.
Right.
So it's like you can't just have religion as a form of escapism.
We have to have a conversation like, is it really actually bad that these cousins maybe want to get together?
Well, like the point is, they think it's bad.
They think it's bad. Yeah,
right?
I guess
they're doing something they don't think they should
Ramy
be doing.
maybe is making an argument for it, but
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. But even
that's a whole other
But even out loud to Mo, he's like, "She's my cousin."
Yeah.
Right? Mo has no problem with this. Again,
well, and
in the same
how did
situation, Mo would be
Islam-
completely
I mean,
at peace.
Okay.
Right.
Jewish tribes, Islamic tribes, they all were getting together with their cousins.
Yes.
Yes.
I think-
but that's like
but
another
like
conversation.
for instance, the Torah has a whole chapter on sexual.
About incest, yeah.
No, I mean like there are things you don't do, right?
Yes,
and there are
yes.
also
Like, it'd be different
There's also
if this was his mom.
There's also a next tier of relatives that you don't get involved with in
Yeah.
that chapter, right?
Yeah.
So you know.
But I'd say but that's like a whole other like probably rabbit hole.
But the point here is.
But they do think that it's wrong.
So you've got secularism, which is presented as empty. You've got the sort of conservative Sunni Islam, which is presented as having maybe some sensible rules, but not wrapped in love and care.
Yeah.
Then you have Sufism, which is all about love, but also kind of escapism, which then doesn't then go bring power back into his life for him to like actually win in his thinking.
Like in my mind, like in my mind, like that episode with the teenagers, the drunk teenagers, where
oh my gosh.
and he where like whatever the character's in a room and then like he's with the other depressed girl and then she's like and like she's unloading on him and like and then you can see. So what I like about his character is that he's really, really empathetic character. Like he takes this girl seriously. He like actually feels, the heartbreak and the pain of like sin and like in this girl's life and like is actually like trying to make it better. But like at the end of the day, it's like really like what you wish you could say to this character is like, well, like, can your God show up in this brokenness? Like, in that, but instead, right, he's like, let's take some shots. Like, he wants to make her feel good and like get her out of that sad mindset. And my question is like, can your God show up in a situation like this? And like I think that question is also brought up with the construction worker or like the other guy that makes him pray for his mom.
Right.
He's making the argument maybe your God can show up. Pray for her, right? But it was really weird. It was so uncomfortable what that character did. But then I think that's just another question that's brought up in the show is how does, like, can God show up? How does he show up?
And I think the most uncomfortable thing about that scene is that, like Ramy doesn't feel like what he's asking is right, but he can't really articulate why it's wrong either.
Yes.
Because it's like Ramy kind of has this claim and belief that he's supposed to be connected to God. And this guy who is desperate for connection with God is asking Ramy for something that Ramy can't actually give him.
No. Yes.
Right.
And that it's just kind of even wrong to be asking that of him.
It needs to fit in my orthodoxy. What you're asking me has to axing. That's what we say. My jersey just came out. Has to fit in my orthodoxy, right? Like, it has to. Okay, you want me to pray for you, but I will pray for you the next time I have to pray. Right? As opposed to, let me meet your need right now. You know, like.
And which he tries. He's like, all right, dude, I'll do it right now.
He tries, but he doesn't want to.
But it's
right. Like he feels.
It was compulsive.
It feels like he was compelled to do it.
Guilt,
right?
compulsion.
Yeah, right. Like,
that guy's crazy.
Why can't I?
That character.
I don't know how to answer his question, and I don't want to be mean or socially awkward or shut the guy down. He's obviously going through a lot. So let me, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Right? I'll do it.
Yeah.
Right.
So we can't go 2 hours on this because this is like a review of a show. So
right.
let's hear some closing thoughts from you guys.
Okay. I can't wait to watch season 2.
Yeah.
It's like, part 1 of that. And I think it's been fascinating to watch how he's developing as a character. It speaks directly to some of my experience. But I would tell anyone that this is a smartly written show that has compelling characters, and it will help you understand cultural Islam and the clash between cultural Islam and, let's just say, conservative Sunni Islam better. And outside of whatever the character shenanigans are, it's also very funny.
It's amazing. It's 10 out of 10.
It's
best
very
show
funny. Yeah.
that I've seen in a long time.
Slam dunk.
So good. They aced it.
Yeah. This is just like, for no other reason, you should watch this show because it is like excellent.
It's a worthwhile show.
It's amazing. It's just so well written. It's so funny. It's so like profound in a lot of ways. Just on that basis, it's just a show worth watching its own merits. But I think especially for Christians who want to understand and grow in the nuance of the Muslim world, like it of course doesn't give you every piece of information about the Muslim world, but it's gonna make you think more deeply about your neighbors, think more deeply about
yourself.
Right.
And yourself.
And
I wouldn't
feel
exclude.
And make your Muslims more human.
Yes,
right.
That's so important.
Less like, like a monolith. Like less, something cold and hard, and I can't actually go up and interact with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, somebody shouldn't watch Ramy and think they understand Islamic culture or the religion completely, obviously. But it's so valuable as a sort of cultural exercise of getting to sort of humanize this element of society. And
right.
Yes.
Like, I love some of these characters like they're genuine friends, and a lot of them like really look like a lot of my like real friendships I have. So I know some Ramys, I know some Mo's. Definitely know some Uncle Naseems.
Oh my gosh.
I grew up with a couple of those.
I highly encourage checking out. Obviously, there's some like heavy subject matter there, but I mean, it's art. You've got to take it as such, and human nature is ugly, and this is a really good exploration of human nature.
Yeah.
Which means there's some ugly stuff in that. But there's some really funny stuff in that. So.
And don't forget, it's television. They're doing things to make you watch it. So keep that in mind. Keep that in your back pocket when you're like, I don't want to, that's too shocking, right? Well, part of it is TV. It's written for TV.
Drama.
Right? Yeah.
And like everything, but all the shocking stuff is just like slightly dialed up versions of stuff that.
Oh yeah, it's totally not. I mean, again, it's not Game of Thrones. It's. I feel like it's real enough for you to like connect with it, but not. Well, it's worth it. That's what I would say. It'll help you connect with it, and it's worth it.
Okay, well, guys, thanks for watching. We will see you next time on Christ and Caliphate.